Hello, this is Dr. Zachary Ward with the Life in Alignment podcast. This podcast is packed full with what I believe to be critical information. The show isn't long, so don't worry, but it could have a lasting effect on your life. What are we talking about today? Well, we're going to talk about how to feel more powerful in 2 minutes or less. We're going to discuss if chiropractic adjustments are as good as nerve injections for low back disc problems. Can you go to a chiropractor if you have a disc problem? Third, are your vitamins exposing you to lead? There's a new and alarming and kind of confusing report from the FDA regarding vitamins containing lead marketed to women and children. What does it really mean once you sift through all their data? It depends on how you look at it. We'll talk about that. If you know me because I take care of your spinal care as your upper cervical chiropractor here in Auburn Hills, Michigan, thank you for listening. I really appreciate you and the time that you're investing in your health today with me. If you found me online via podcast or perhaps on YouTube, my YouTube channel, thanks for listening as well. If you're in my geographic region, you want more information about my practice or anything I'm sharing with you today, you may contact me via my website. That is LIACHIRO, LIA Chiro. It's about as easy as that. That will take you to a page with a contact box on the right-hand side. You can use that contact box, leave me your name and email, and reference this podcast. And we'll go ahead and start our conversation that way. So, attention spans are short these days, aren't they? Let's go ahead and get started by talking about power and posture. And some research is saying your posture determines how you feel. Can you use this to your advantage? Well, how you feel definitely influences how you stand, sit, and move. I think most of us know that, at least intuitively, especially if we've ever been in pain. Pain stops us from standing upright, from moving with a full range of motion, and from moving as quickly as we would like. Lack of self-esteem, self-confidence, and depression, though, can show up in our posture as well. We all instinctively know how a confident and happy person stands up. Generally, their posture is up and open with their shoulders back and up. We have this language, especially in English, about, chin up, keep your head up. He's got a good, strong back, get a leg underneath you. We link posture and emotion and behavior all the time. The person who lacks confidence, however, rather than standing upright, they tend to stand closed and often more forward. We call this kyphotic posture. It's almost like they're trying to hide out in the open. Probably the most classic example of this is the self-conscious adolescent, who's aware of their body changing and isn't quite sure how they feel about it. I can tell you after giving several thousand adjustments over the last 5 years that when posture changes as a result of better alignment, often the person's demeanor changes as well. People who are in alignment tend to be happier people. This could be due to changes in lower brain chemistry. So the chemistry that is kind of circulating in the bloodstream in the lower brain, this could change as a result of the adjustment. There's some anatomical and physiological reasons for that. But a simpler explanation could just simply be that if it's easier to stand upright, have upright and open posture, the happier and more self-confident we will be. So this is what research from a woman named Amy Cuddy is saying. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. I should have gone back and checked that, but you spell it Cuddy. First name Amy, A-M-Y. Last name Cuddy. She teaches at the Harvard Business School. She has a TED presentation, if you know what that's about. And she knew that how we feel can influence our posture, which definitely translates into our body language, which is an important topic for her as she's studying the body language component of business interactions at the Harvard Business School. But what she wanted to know is if the opposite was possible. Can we intentionally change how we feel by changing how we are standing? She phrases it, can we fake it until we make it? In other words, can we adopt a more powerful stance and then feel more powerful? Well, her results seem to show, yeah. And I believe anyone who has lifted weights for more than a few times will probably nod their head in agreement, because if you lift weights properly, you end up improving your posture. You kind of open up your chest. It does change the level of hormones in your system, and you tend to stand upright with more self-confidence. That's because holding body positions can actually boost certain hormones in our system, and that is what she has discovered, and that affects self-confidence, and the hormone in question, I do believe, is testosterone. So what does this have to do with you? Well, if you're a student or you work in an office, consider a small thought experiment. Is it possible that having a desk job that forces you to adopt a down and closed posture, that's the opposite of the up and open self-confident posture, is it possible that this down and closed posture for about 3/4 of your work or study day is actually helping you to feel powerless? It's kind of an interesting idea. Would your day change if every so often you went and power posed in the bathroom for a few minutes, as Amy suggests? For example, you're a student, you just spent the last 12 hours cramming for this exam, which makes you nervous. You spent most of that with a very forward head posture, rounded shoulders, slumped in your chair, kind of trying to cram this information in you, and all of a sudden you find yourself not lacking any confidence. Well, what if you spent the final few moments before taking that exam in the bathroom doing one of these power poses that Amy shows? Would your confidence level go up? Would your performance on that test go up? I think probably yeah. So would your day change, again, if every so often you went and power posed in the bathroom for a few minutes? How do you power pose to raise certain hormones in your system? It's pretty simple. She goes over in the TED presentation, which lasts about 20 minutes. There's a link for the full presentation below this video if you're on the YouTube page. If you're on one of my web pages, I'll link it there as well. I just recommend you go and watch your full presentation to kind of get the full effect. And keep in mind, it is YouTube. I am not responsible for any comments you read there. Are adjustments as good as nerve injections for people with low back disc problems? Well, in a recent study, groups of patients with confirmed disc herniation were given nerve root injections on one hand, or they're in another group that was given a series of chiropractic adjustments. And this was people with nerve pain in the leg with confirmed disc herniation as seen on MRI. So they had something happening in their anatomy that they confirmed. So what is a disc herniation? It is the kind of breakdown of the disc between the spinal bones. The disc is a fibrocartilage pad that grows into each end of the spinal bone, helps the spine keep its shape, involved with flexibility, strength, turning, all that good stuff. As this disc is under stress, it begins to dehydrate, it loses some of its fluid, it deforms, the edges of it tear a bit, and some of it starts moving into the area of the spinal cord. That's what the disc herniation is. So true disc herniation causes the classic pinched nerve leg pain, where there's a shooting or a shock-like pain down the leg into the left or right foot. It can also create numbness, and if it's there for a while and it's severe enough, it can also cause muscle wasting, where the muscle actually begins to shrink up. So again, the study took two different groups of people with disc herniation and either gave them a nerve block injection to try to kill the pain, or they got a chiropractic adjustment, or a series of them. And what they found was that each group reported the same decrease in pain levels and increase in motion as a result of their care. So the takeaway for me on this is that as the risks and the costs of chiropractic tend to be a lot lower than a spinal nerve injection, especially if you get into multiple injections, the study reveals the remarkable value that chiropractic care has for those with serious low back pain, with disc pain. And if you've ever heard that you can't go see a chiropractor if you have a bad disc, it's just simply not true. This study shows why. If that's you, perhaps it's time for someone to actually look at your alignment and get at the biomechanical root of why your disc may be breaking down. If you're in the southeast Michigan area, suggest Life and Alignment here in Auburn Hills. Finally, heavy metals are showing up in vitamins marketed to women and children. What the heck is going on? This comes directly from the FDA website, and I quote, "In early 2007, the FDA became aware of reports of elevated lead levels in certain vitamins, which became an issue of concern, naturally, to the FDA, Congress, and members of the public. This survey was conducted to determine the content of lead in vitamins labeled for women and children. The lead content of 324 different multivitamin or mineral supplements products was purchased over the internet, and they go into, end of quote, they go into how it was that they went ahead and studied the lead component of these products. Okay, so here are the results. Here's the short version of the story, is that of the 300 plus vitamins that they looked at, none of the vitamins, according to the FDA, contained enough lead to be above what the FDA recommends as a safe and tolerable limit for lead exposure. So in other words, none of the products violated the FDA's own definitions of what's safe and tolerable. On the other hand, only 4 products measured out of the 324 actually had 0 levels of lead in them. So what does this mean? Well, it really all depends on what you think about the FDA and their levels of safe and tolerable lead exposure. As lead exposure in children is especially harmful, it actually can lower IQ, there is some concern that some parents obviously would have. As pointed out by my colleague, Dr. Frank Painter, at the website www.chiro.org, a great website for anybody on chiropractic care, there is an article in the Journal of Pediatrics that shows that the lead levels at only half the tolerable level as defined by the FDA can directly impact a child's ability to read. So in other words, if you take that what is safe and tolerable according to the FDA and you have that amount and you were to find that amount within the child's tissue or blood, then that child more likely than not would have a lower reading ability because they have that lead in their system. Now, just because someone's exposed to that safe and tolerable level doesn't mean that they're going to end up with all that lead in their tissue, but it does raise a serious question, which is, is the FDA safe and tolerable level low enough? So here are some of the most surprising for me in terms of the products that were on the list that had the higher lead levels, and that is Solaray's prenatal vitamin and Garden of Life's Living Multi-Optimal and Garden of Life's Living Multi. Many aspects of vitamins and supplements aren't really evaluated by the FDA, and there's some good and there's some bad things with this. On the con side is you may end up with more lead exposure and heavy metals in the over-the-counter supplements than you would want, because it's not being monitored. Although again, they all came below what was supposedly safe and tolerable. On the pro side, without the regulations, the vitamins and supplements are available to us. We can take them for things that are, not approved by the FDA, things that can be very powerful in terms of unlocking some nutritional deficiencies within the human system, and they're relatively inexpensive, especially when compared to prescription drugs. So that's the pro side of not having those regulations. So I think the story highlights the need to find brands that you trust. The world is too complex for us to expect that no supplement that we're ever going to take might not be contaminated. We should only purchase from companies, though, that we believe will hold themselves to a higher standard. And when you kind of look at the long view on this, it's really hard to say if the FDA is failing on this point or not, because, quite frankly, this is the result of generations of better living through chemistry. We make use of all these products that involve plastics and things that have really benefited and modernized our lifestyle. However, there are industrial consequences of using those chemicals, and that some of them do end up in our fields and our streams, and then subsequently they end up in some of our food and food products, and we're exposed to them. So what is the FDA supposed to do? If they set the number at 0, then they really regulate a lot of some of these companies out of business because they don't have the means to guarantee that there is 0 lead exposure in some of their products. When in doubt, we can always call the manufacturer of our favorite supplements and ask, what do you guys do about this? Have you ever studied this? There are some companies that do hold themselves to a higher standard, which I will recommend in the office for general nutritional needs. If you have any questions about that, you can always go ahead and contact me via my website. This is Dr. Zachary Ward from Life in Alignment Chiropractic. This is the Life in Alignment podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking with you again.